Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to the first ever TEDx Troy Youth event. Thank you to everyone for being here today. My name is Jessie Wang. I am a senior here at Troy, and I will be your host for today. Thank you to our organizers, students Sunny Yu, Mr. Paget, and Mr. Knowles for making this event possible. Well, what is a TEDx event? As Mr. Knowles said, many of you may be familiar with TED and TED Talks. In the spirit of ideas worth sharing, TEDx is a branch program of local self-organized events to help share a TED-like experience. Today, I'm excited to bring you a wide range of speaker topics, ranging from cultural competence to the importance of community service, to the art of talking, to the importance of body positivity. All brought to you by some of our very accomplished students. Without further ado, our first speaker is a senior. He's a varsity athlete, a biomedical researcher, and an avid fan of pineapple cakes. As a first-generation Taiwanese American, here to bring us today the topic of the importance of cultural competence, please welcome Reagan Sue.
Hello, everyone. My name is Reagan. I'm a senior here at Troy High School, as Jessie said. Thank you. I'm a biomedical researcher, I'm a writer, and I'm a teacher. And I'm so honored to be able to give this talk today. So without further ado, let's get started. You may be wondering why the title of my talk seems like a factual statement, right? Cultural awareness is indeed not cultural competence. And you would be right. It is a pretty factual statement. And so that's why I need to define the lines of this. Because when those lines get blurred and sometimes when cultural awareness is mistaken for cultural competence, I want to show you guys just how detrimental it can be in our world. And to get a little bit in on myself, I grew up in a pretty racist and xenophobic family. It's pretty crazy to say out loud, right? But it's true. I grew up in a really racist and xenophobic family. I was told that people from certain races were frauds and cheats. I was told that people from certain ethnicities to never trust them. And I was told to always trust my people, like my culture, right? And that's the big word that I wanted to talk about today. Culture, right? It's a force of unity, right? Where we can find like connections and comfort beyond just our blood, where we can share like years and years of tradition and lifestyle, right? And related to this, especially with our world being so open with media and travel, you guys have probably noticed that throughout the world, there's cultures that you may not understand, things within other cultures, traditions that you may not agree with, right? And most of us are aware of that, right? And that's the first term I wanted to define today, cultural awareness. Yeah, cultural awareness, where we're able to see that other cultures exist in the world, right? That may not relate to our culture, that we may disagree with their culture, but we know that it's just different and we accept it, right? And related to this, but very importantly different, there's a term called cultural competence. Cultural competence is essentially a step past this, where we're able to interact, work, and develop relationships with people from other cultures. And what I really wanted to define today, and what I wanted to change today, is under the normal definition of cultural competence, I want you guys to raise your hands and say, are you able to interact, work, and develop relationships with other cultures? Raise your hands. Thank you. Most of us, right? And it's true. Like these two essentially not necessarily mean the same thing, but one warrants the other, right? If you're aware that there are other cultures in the world, and even if you don't understand it, even though if you're aware of it, right, it's likely that you're able to interact with them, right? And that's why today I want to redefine cultural competence. And I want to redefine it very subtly, but it's a very important difference. I want to redefine it to looking forward to interacting with other cultures and looking forward to developing relationships with people from other cultures. And honestly, the big reason why, and you may be asking, like, why would I ever do this? It's because of the fact that we don't notice this, and I didn't personally notice this, but we put up walls between our culture and other cultures. For instance, there's this topic called ethnocentrism. It's basically where we take standards from our own culture and we apply them to other cultures and we judge other cultures on them. There's two researchers, Ross Hammond and Robert Axelrod, who essentially proved this. They showed that, well, it's a nearly universal syndrome, as they defined, that we essentially judge other cultures based on the standards of our own culture. And it may come down to things as simple as, like, for example, if you eat dinner at the table with your family and some other people don't eat dinner at the table with their family, right? You could judge them based off of that fact. It could be something as simple as that. So in other words, we all, even if it's subconscious, most of us, if not all of us, evaluate other cultures based on our own. And related to this is pretty much the inverse, right? A researcher called Daniel Yang and with others, he essentially proved that it's also a nearly universal syndrome, and it's a subconscious bias that we all have, that we do not like mixing our culture with other cultures. Our brains basically just don't like when they combine, and a lot of us feel negatively when that occurs. And you're probably seeing why I want to redefine this a little bit now, right? Because of the fact that subconsciously, research has literally been shown that, well, we don't like mixing our culture with other cultures, right? And there's a bunch of examples of this in the world where we don't like mixing our culture with other cultures. But who better to talk about than myself, right? And these are pretty goofy photos of me, but nonetheless. Who better to talk about than myself when I'm talking about wanting to mix myself with other cultures, especially with the background that I grew up in, right? And it may come down to things as simple as not necessarily ethnical things, but for example, I work in a lab, right? I work in a biomedical lab, and for example, me and my lab partner and my entire lab, we pipette from left to right. It's our culture. It's what we do. It's the rules that we all preset for ourselves. But when I moved into a new lab, people started like pipetting top to bottom, and it seems like such an insignificant thing, right? Like you can pipette whatever way you want, diagonally, whatever way you want. But I was like, well, I was like defensive. I was like, well, why in the world are you pipetting from top to bottom when I pipette from left to right? Right? I was defensive, and that's just one example, right? And an even sillier example, an even smaller scale example is when I was cooking. Personally, I like to eat my eggs with white pepper, okay? And it's what I grew up with, okay? I think it gives a nice subtle flavor to whatever I'm cooking, so I like to put white pepper on my eggs. But one day, when I was cooking with one of my friends, he said, well, why don't you try putting black pepper on your eggs? I was like, and this is no way like a racial thing or anything like that. I was told to say that, but yeah, it's in no way like it's literally just the silliest example you could think of. It's two different types of pepper, and I was immediately like, what in the world are you doing? Like like you put white pepper on your eggs, and I realized it's not that I'm not open to trying new things. After all, I tried putting black pepper on my eggs that day. It's the fact that I didn't look forward to trying that new thing. It's the fact that I didn't look forward to putting black pepper on my eggs. And quite frankly, now I only season my eggs with black pepper. But yeah, and even if my examples are so small scale, right? Like this is just within this little corner of my life. These examples extrapolate to something much, much greater in scale. For instance, you guys have probably all heard of bilingual education, right? Where kids grow up with maybe learning a second language besides English or besides their main language. For example, English and Spanish, English and Mandarin, right? But for years and years, the reason why we didn't adopt this bilingual practice, it's because of the fact that we didn't look forward to interacting with other cultures, where in a lot of other countries around the world, their culture is to grow you up with a second language. Around Europe, Finland, Germany, wherever it is, you are taught multiple languages wherever you go. And to give a last final point, and oh my gosh, yeah, to give a last point, I want to, of course, just re-emphasize the fact that cultural awareness is not cultural competence at all. We need to be looking forward to interacting with new cultures. And if we're going to take away anything from my talk, I hope that you look at me as kind of like a channel for yourself. Me and my white pepper, my lab pipetting. Look introspectively and say, well, maybe I've like rejected some cultural thing that maybe is a better practice. Maybe it tastes better. Whatever it is, I hope you guys can look at me and my life and say, well, maybe I can take a step into making a change and looking forward to interacting with new cultures. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Reagan, for that speech. Cultural competence is truly an essential aspect of human empathy and social unity. Our next speaker is a junior, president of Key Club and an active volunteer in her community for over 6 years. She is very passionate about student advocacy. Here to bring us a topic of the importance of community service, please welcome Victoria Cho.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone in the audience, and to everyone tuning in on Troy Omnia. My name is Victoria Cho. At home, I'm the eldest daughter of 4. At school, I am a junior and the president of Troy Key Club. And in the Golden State of California, I proudly represent over 6 million students as the state vice president of the California Association of Student Councils. And personally, I am a lifelong volunteer and an avid advocate for mental health and student voice. First and foremost, before I begin my talk, I would like to thank the organizer of this event, Sunny Yu, the co-organizer of this event, Mr. Paget, and Mr. Knowles and everyone in the Omnia team for making this event possible. And I would also like to thank my mom for being my biggest supporter. As high school students, many of us have a shining goal in mind: to prove and demonstrate our capabilities to the institution of our dreams. Amidst the challenges of rigorous coursework, it has become evident that excelling in academics alone is simply not sufficient. In the evolving landscape of college admissions, it is acknowledged that cultivating unique qualities is crucial to distinguishing oneself as a compelling applicant. One such quality involves us demonstrating our benevolence and societal contributions, which is most effectively and frequently showcased through engagement in volunteering. Now, we're all familiar with the Presidential Volunteer Service Award, or PVSA for short, I'm sure. The Presidential Volunteer Service Award recognizes individuals who have completed and committed an outstanding amount of time to service work. It's also like a shining gold star that many of us can put onto our college applications to set ourselves apart. This award has become so popular amongst high school students that it has become widely speculated whether or not this award truly recognizes and honors individuals with the genuine intent of creating a better world, or if this award simply encourages mindless volunteering for the sake of reaching the amount of hours needed to receive the award. Does the award truly uplift the noble and altruistic essence of volunteerism if volunteers aren't engaging with the right intentions, despite technically completing the acquired tasks needed to assist? Does hastily assuming that awardees pursued it merely for the award undermine and negate the sincere efforts of those who genuinely want to change the world for the better? These are questions that naturally arise as a consequence of this situation. I would say that volunteers who volunteer solely for the sake of the award really aren't harming anyone but themselves, as a true reward can only be extracted by those who volunteer for the sake of volunteering. In fact, I would go on to say that volunteers who are volunteering solely for the award are still creating positive change in the world. While their intent is ingenuine, the work that they've done and committed to is tangible. Ingenuine volunteer work is better than no work done at all here. Although I agree that there should be a way in which genuine and intent volunteers are able to receive more recognition and honor, ingenuine volunteers already face the consequences. The guilt gnawing inside of them, the imposter syndrome, and of course, the wasted time and effort. Now, if you're volunteering solely for the sake of an award, I would like to encourage you to re-examine what you really get out of that. Did you really just spend 100 hours of your time to a meaningless certificate, just a piece of paper? Or did you spend 100 hours of your time committed to a rewarding experience that makes the world a better place for all? When you finally receive that certificate, will you feel, oh, a long and arduous task finally done? Or will you feel, wow, a sense of accomplishment and well rewarded for what you've committed to? Now, for all those who are striving for the PBSA award, I commend you for your commitment to making your community a better place. But for those who are doing it solely for the sake of the award, I would like to remind you that just like everything else in life that you do, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And besides, you're volunteering anyway, so you might as well just get the most out of it. There's so much more to volunteering than just an award. As someone who relied on the kindness and selflessness of other volunteers in my childhood, their compassion and selfless assistance changed my life, and I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today without their time and effort. Their willingness to extend that helping hand during a time where to me nothing seemed possible was a beacon of light and an expression of humanity. And I never knew the real intent of their volunteering. Maybe to them, the work seemed insignificant, but no matter how insignificant the work may have seemed to them, to me, it was everything and more. Volunteering, no matter what circumstance, focus, area, should never be downplayed, because experiencing or even just witnessing the altruistic act of volunteering can change people's lives when they need it the most. As we discuss the benefits of volunteerism today, it's crucial to recognize that the benefits of volunteerism extends far beyond the immediate beneficiaries of our efforts. Volunteerism creates a positive chain reaction, inspiring others to join in on the altruistic act of volunteering. This chain of goodwill creates a multiplier effect that extends the impact of volunteerism far beyond what any individual or organization can achieve alone. It transcends borders, cultures, and backgrounds, uniting individuals in a collective effort to addressing the diverse challenges that our society faces today. At its core, volunteerism is an expression of humanity. It reminds us that the well-being of one is intricately related to the well-being of all. As a cornerstone of humanity, volunteerism not only directly benefits and enriches the lives of those involved, but it also exemplifies the capacity for kindness and generosity that defines the human spirit. Now that I'm in a position where I'm able to give back to my community as a volunteer myself, I'm experiencing the profound opportunity of giving back. Through volunteering, I'm not only able to directly benefit the lives of others, but it's also become a source of personal rejuvenation. As I reflect on my past, I vividly remember the second semester of my freshman year. During this time, I experienced the first and the worst burnout of my life. In the grips of depression, I struggled to perform basic self-care tasks, showering, eating, or even just drinking water. I know. During this time, I felt a sense of inertia and hopelessness. I felt that nothing was possible, and this caused me to really spiral. Despite trying various self-help methods and seeking therapy, in the end, it was volunteering that saved me. And remarkably enough, I never embarked on my journey in volunteering with the intention of self-improvement, but it unexpectedly became a catalyst for personal transformation. Through volunteering, I found a sense of purpose and fulfillment, And in the process of fully dedicating myself to giving, I found a path to healing, and I rediscovered the strength within myself to navigate challenges. Volunteering became the beacon of light once again in my life, highlighting the incredible reciprocal nature of giving back. Volunteerism not only saved me as someone on the receiving end, but also as someone on the giving end. Now, as we conclude today, my most sincere wish is for every single one of you to depart with a profound sense of appreciation for the significance of volunteerism, to volunteer for the sake of volunteering. In challenging times like today, the spirit of volunteerism is more crucial and more needed than ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria, for that speech. Community service and volunteerism truly represent much more than we know. Our next speaker is a senior, president of Mock Trial and vice president of Speech and Debate. He is a passionate and experienced speaker, here to introduce to us today the art of talking. Please welcome Brian Yuan.
Hi everyone, my name is Brian. They already told you my positions. I'll just let you know a little bit more about myself. I'm nationally ranked in congressional debate, and I'd just like to extend my thanks once again to the organizers, for Sunny Yu, Mr. Paget, Mr. Knowles, for making all this possible. All right, talking and speaking. Now, Cambridge Dictionary tells us that these two words are synonyms for each other. And in the lexical sense, they absolutely are. But in application, you'll find that these two could not be more drastically different. You see, there's something distinctly different when I tell you I'm going to talk with someone as opposed to when I'm going to speak with someone. Now, one way to understand the key difference between these two topics is to look at the actions behind these two words. While to speak simply refers to uttering something or saying something, to talk specifically refers to conveying information to someone or something. Now, I compete in speech and debate. I'm sure all of you know that because that's the first thing they said when I came up here. And one of the hallmarks, or one of the worst parts of debating and being judged as a debater is being valued for your performance over your content. Now, we debaters, sorry, that sounded pretentious, but people who do debate, that sounds better. People who do debate pour hours and hours of their time researching into a very, very niche topic. And when we go on stage or step into a classroom, we expect ourselves to be judged for our knowledge on that topic. But the thing is, if you have a mediocre argument, most times you can make up for that mediocrity and gain a bunch of points by just talking well. By using a showy speaking style or using fancy lines of rhetoric, you can boost your points drastically. Oftentimes, you'll actually rank above people who've actually done the research into these topics and understand them well. Now, this brings us to a crucial evaluation of how we value pure presentation skills over over content. As a society, do we adapt to this emphasis on speaking and presentation, or do we make an effort to adjust somehow and go back to our evaluation of content in and of itself? Here's my take on that matter. I think public speaking is a bit overrated. Wait, no, that's not the right phrase, sorry. Public speaking is good. But there's a phrase in Spanish that roughly translates to talking through your elbows or with your elbows. Metaphorically, it refers to someone who talks a lot without actually saying all that much. It refers to someone who's able to string together long sentences and use showy rhetoric and sound good without actually having much content inside of their speeches. Personally, I'd like to call it word soup. The truth is that most of the top speakers that you see today, whether that be politicians, whether that be corporate presenters, or even motivational speakers, aren't really saying that much. People want to listen to you when you can sound good, when you can string together these fancy lines of rhetoric and use big words. And the people want to be entertained. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But the truth is, this puts people down. In instances ranging from political debates to educational institutions, our ability to speak often trumps the necessity for a thorough and deep understanding of the topics that we're actually discussing. See, it's easy to listen to statistics and evidence and all of this mumbo jumbo when you're listening to a topic that you care about or you already have some knowledge on. But it's so much easier to listen to elbow talk or to peer presentation when it's a topic that you're not too familiar with or you don't care so much about. Now, I don't say this to chide any of you. This is absolutely natural. I do the same thing. When I approach a new topic, I want something that sounds good and doesn't throw too much information at me. Because honestly, when it talks too much about statistics and evidence, the numbers fly over my head and I don't understand what's going on. And again, that's not a bad thing. Everybody does this, including myself. But from educational institutions to political arenas, this necessity for presentation triumphs over necessity for good content. If anything, I'm being hypocritical right now. I haven't given you, any of you, a single statistic or a piece of evidence to back up a single claim that I'm making. But that's just how I was taught to speak. I was taught to put passion behind my words and to speak with my hands and to use hand gestures to emphasize certain points. I was taught that people want to listen to me when I sound good, not when I actually had something important to say. You see, this overemphasis on public speaking skills alone puts individuals down. People need to know that they can speak up, not just because they can sound good, but because they actually have something to say. This could democratize the conversation space and make it so that people who aren't traditionally charismatic can come up here and have the confidence to share valuable insights that could be life-changing to some individuals. Now, there's no denying the importance of public speaking skills as a whole. They're important. Presentation should matter. The goal of this argument isn't to put down presentation as a necessity. I think we should still focus on how we sound and how we present ourselves. It's to make it so that presentation is complementary to content as opposed to overshadowing it. People need to know that they can talk and they can come up here and speak, not just because they can sound good. They need to know that people want to listen to them because they have something that's important to say. Let's all try to talk a little less with our elbows and speak a little bit more with our hearts.
Thank you, Brian, for that speech. I never realized there to be such a fundamental difference between speaking and talking. Our final speaker is also a senior, founder of the inclusivity organization For Everybody, and here to talk to us today about body positivity. Please welcome Shia Jen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. And hello to those watching on Troy Omnia. I am so grateful to have this amazing opportunity to share my thoughts on body positivity. So, I'm going to start with a question. Do these two strawberry yogurts look that different besides the packaging? No, right? Well, if you turn them around and look closely at the food labels, one has less added sugar, but the other one has more protein. So which one should I go with? The one with less added sugar or the one with more protein? As weird as it sounds, there are people like that who meticulously stare at food labels whenever they go grocery shopping. Well, I was one of those people a few years back, and to be honest, I still do that occasionally. So what's the motivation or the logic behind all this? Eating disorder? Nutritious values? Well, this all tied together to an idea that affects everyone, yet it's often overlooked or misunderstood: body positivity. In a world bombarded with unrealistic beauty standards and societal pressures, embracing body positivity has become more crucial than ever. So what does it mean to be body positive? Body positivity is not merely about loving your body regardless of its shape or size. It's about realizing that our body extends far beyond our physical appearance, and also rejecting the toxic narratives that dictate our self-worth based just on appearance, and celebrating the diversity of the human body. I participated in a beauty pageant my sophomore year of high school. As glamorous as it seems, losing 24 pounds within 3 months was surreal. Working out felt empowering, but being told that eating a pre-photo shoot salad would make me look bloated certainly did not. Besides developing unhealthy habits like refusing to eat chocolate that's below 75%, I began noticing what I have previously overlooked at school. For example, unrealistic body goals, snide comments about food, and a constant flow of problematic language such as horizontally challenged, well-nourished, pigging out. Yes, some of you laughed, but these moments mirrored the worst of my pageant experience. So, after being aware of what was going round surrounding me, I began collecting ideas. First, we must reject the harmful habit of comparing ourselves to others, because after all, we are all unique individuals with different genetic makeups, life experiences, and journeys. And instead of criticizing ourselves for perceived flaws and imperfections, we need to learn how to treat ourselves with the same empathy and understanding we would provide to someone else facing similar struggles. So, when I shared these ideas to a group of elementary students, I asked them for their definition of body positivity. A second grader said something that struck me. He was like, "You shouldn't tell fat people that they're fat." At first, I was stunned, but then I began to reflect on that thought. I have long felt obligated to be inclusive to everyone, including those who I believed needed some changes. To what point do we continue enabling the unhealthy habits of our loved ones? How long can we watch someone eat terrible food daily, but tell them that what they're doing is okay? Now, instead of being flat out accepting, I've learned to strike a balance between truth and sensitivity, which is continue to promote kindness and inclusion, but also having the courage to call out harmful habits. So let's be clear. Body positivity is not just replacing a set of beauty standards with another, or just a personal journey. It's about realizing that your body is an instrument, not an ornament, capable of incredible feats of vitality, strength, and resilience. So, together, as a whole, we can all contribute to a more compassionate and inclusive world, one body positive step at a time. With the new definition of body positivity in mind, I am on a new mission to be more honest to everyone, including myself, so that hopefully one day I can walk confidently out of the grocery store with my favorite brand of yogurt in hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Shia, for that speech. Body positivity, especially in our modern day and age, embodies a crucial discussion to be had. Sincere thank you to all of our speakers for sharing their voices with us today. I hope all of you can leave here today with some fascinating, educational, and inspirational takeaways. With that being said, thank you all again as well for attending our first ever TEDx Troy Youth event. Without your support, this event would not have been possible. With that said, in the spirit of ideas worth sharing, I hope that the ideas shared here today will continue to spark curiosity and change. Thank you.